Hello, all you positive heads. Welcome to a very special episode dedicated to none other than you, the PHeads themselves. I am your PHead enthusiast and hostess for the day, Alexa Hauser. I have been blessed to have the experience of helping out with Positive Head social media for the better part of a year. And through my digital interactions, I began to realize, as did Brandon, that we have some incredible beings listening to the show who are taking the information that Brandon puts out through the podcast and using it to transform their lives and create wonderful things. You listeners are all a huge, huge part of the life force that propels this show forward through time and space, and we think it's time to bring forth some of you beautiful reflections and delve a little deeper into this collection of energy that is the Positive Head community. So as we shine the spotlight on our listeners, what we'll have them do is share their stories of how they attracted Positive Head into their life, the transformation it's facilitated for them, and what they're focused on creating now that they're in a more positive headspace. Also, this episode of the Positive Head podcast is being brought to you thanks to the support of Gaia. If you're not familiar, Gaia is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content online. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. Hello, all you positive heads. On this week's PHead Posse episode, our guest is Jill Thomas. Jill is a hypnotherapist, past life regression therapist, intuitive reader, and author of the new book, Tales from the Trance. Hi, Jill. Welcome to the show.
Hey, I'm so glad to come. So happy that you allowed me to join your little posse today. I'm so excited.
Of course. You and your cat and anyone else can join the posse if you want.
Love it.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited. It's cool because like I don't really I schedule a bunch of these and then I get to see like who I'm talking to that day. And when I was like reading your description, I was like, oh, I'm so excited to talk to Jill because I love I'm super interested in hypnotherapy and especially past life regression and Tales from the Trance. I mean, this sounds very like Dolores Cannon-y. Is that where this is going?
You know, it's funny. We had the same publisher.
That's so cool.
She's like awesome. The book is not necessarily about past lives and aliens like hers is, which is read her books. They're amazing.
Yeah.
But it's really like the behind the scenes. People go into hypnotherapy having no idea what it is. I don't know how many people have called and said, I've never done anything like this before. What kind of drugs are you going to use? I'm like, there's no drugs. There's no drugs. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating. And so you get to see me lifting the curtain and seeing what the experience is really like. I've worked with some amazing people. I've had athletes, I've had prostitutes, I've had people who came into my office thinking they were an alien, people who thought they were abducted by aliens. I get an amazing array of stories. And so if you're one of those people like me who loves reality TV, this is the book for you because now you get to see all of these stories. There's 80 of them and they're shortish. They're not super long. And you get to understand what it's really like and see people heal. People heal, do amazing results after just one session using these techniques. And I love to share that with the world.
That is awesome. I'm excited. I'm excited to dig into this book a little bit. But before we even get into all of that, you know, what we love to do on the show is hear where people came from and what their stories are like and how their upbringing was and all of that. So what feels most relevant for you to share about what your journey's been, you know, to get to this point?
I think it's helpful just to share this with people who are intuitive, is that I was intuitive. I started off as a child seeing people that weren't there. And just like a lot of you, and people are going to relate to this story, I was told that I was imagining, I had these imaginary friends. And I'm like, what? They look like people that used to be alive and now they're not. How are these imaginary friends? My extended family was very religious. So I heard a lot of, you can't encourage this kind of thing because it's from the devil. And I remember going to a bookstore and picking up like tarot cards. And I thought these were the coolest thing in the world. And my grandma saying, oh my God, these are the devil's cards. And it wasn't until years later that I realized they're just cards. They're just cards.
Yeah.
But it's my whole life I'd been intuitive. And I really loved being able to see kind of the other world. And I think a lot of people can relate to this, is that when you start to allow yourself to open up and acknowledge that maybe that person that doesn't have a body anymore, maybe they really are there, you're not schizophrenic. When you allow that, you begin to see the world a little bit differently, and it's not so scary. Does that make sense? I grew up in Arkansas.
Yeah.
I moved to Encinitas, California when I was a teenager. And it's Encinitas is like a beachy, hippie place. So it was great for me. And I got to be around other people that were a little bit weird, like I was weird. And that was nice. And I've been a hypnotherapist for about 15 years. I love it. First couple of years, I just did it for fun. No money, just read a whole bunch of books. Like everybody around me got a better golf game. And then a bunch of people quit smoking. And then I realized somebody will actually give me money for this. And I'm thinking, I like this because I didn't really like that sales job that I had anymore. I was kind of over that. So I started doing it for money, and it's just kind of blossomed from there.
That's awesome. I've always been very fascinated by hypnotherapy. And actually, I'm curious, now that you're here, I have a question about hypnotherapy because, so is everyone able to be hypnotized?
Yes. Oh, yes. Please tell everyone that.
Okay.
Because every once in a while, somebody comes to me and they went to one of the local fairs, because we have a big fair in San Diego, and they didn't get picked for the stage. So they just assume it means they're not hypnotizable. I will never get picked for the stage either, even though I am the easiest person to hypnotize, because I won't do those crazy things on stage. I'm not going to do it. I'm an introvert. That's not me. Everybody can be hypnotized. Technically, the only people that can't be are people of a much lower intelligence. And when I say lower intelligence, they're what we would be considered handicapped.
Right.
Somebody who is a higher intelligence actually has an easier time. And my scientists or engineers are going to say, no, I can't be hypnotized, because for some reason they think that it means they're more susceptible to change. Like they're not they're going to watch a commercial for Pepsi and suddenly start drinking it. That's not the case. That doesn't mean, that's not what that means. But highly intelligent people hypnotize themselves all day long, particularly engineers and scientists, because when they're focusing really intently on something and the whole world sort of fades away, that's the hypnotic state. So when you're doing hypnotherapy, you're just intentionally going a little bit deeper into that state and asking the mind to start to look at the world differently. Where scientists and engineers think they aren't hypnotizable is because they don't really feel different than they do all day long when they're working on a project, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, well, I was asking because I see, like, for me, I've never been or I was in a program once where there was a hypnotist, and it was an online program, and there was like a little hypnosis. But for me, I'm always like, I'm so in my head. I'm very in my head, and I catch myself trying to think of what the other person wants me to do, and do you know what I mean? Like I'm always trying to be one step ahead. So I'm just curious about that because, like, I actually really want to start exploring hypnotherapy, but I'm just wondering, like, how do you deal with a mind like that that's always kind of trying to like catch what you're trying to do? Does that make sense?
That's a great question. I'm so glad you thought of that because that's brilliant. We sometimes call those people ADD. I'm not saying you have that, but people that go from one thing to another to another to another. When I'm working with a client like that, and I can usually tell because they'll skip topics pretty quick, I actually just make the hypnotic session shorter, and I'll skip around the way they will skip around. So, a good hypnotherapist who understands how to deal with people who are very intelligent, because really intelligent people have a harder time with these long, meandering stories. They lose interest. They hate that. You got to go quick, and you got to put a lot of things into it. So your mind is going to move in different directions. That's one of the reasons myself and most hypnotherapists will record the therapeutic part so that you can do it again. Because the first time you're going to be thinking, where's she going with this? I don't know if I see a monkey. Maybe that's a monkey. Maybe it's a rat. I don't know.
Right.
Just your mind's going to do that. You're human.
Yeah.
But when you listen to the recording again, there's a level of trust. I already know where she's going with this. I already know what the rat is doing. And you allow yourself to really relax and enjoy. It's a lot more like meditation than people realize. So if you're somebody who meditates, you're going to have no problem with hypnotherapy. Trust me. You're already doing it. It's fine.
Cool. Awesome. I love it. And so hypnotherapy is really a form of reprogramming. Is that correct?
Just reprogramming. That's a great way of putting it. So when you think about something like, let's just a common example, fears. Somebody's afraid of being on a plane. When you're in a heightened state of fear, your mind actually goes into that alpha state, that trance, that mild trance state, and you may develop a belief about a plane. So you might develop the belief that being on a plane is a deadly thing and that you're going to die and that you should be really afraid. So in the hypnotic state, we're actually going back into that state of mind minus the fear, And we're going to ask your mind to develop a different belief. Instead of seeing the plane as something that's scary, you're seeing it as a way to get to see grandma or a way to get to go to Hawaii. You start to get excited again, and that fear gets removed. So basically, you're just going back and creating a different belief. That's all. But you've got to get into the state of mind you were in when you created the original belief in order to clear it. And we have thousands, millions of these, and most of them are pretty benign. You're conditioning, your programming to hit the brakes when you see a stop sign. That's a habit. And we don't want to get rid of that one. But if you were afraid when you saw a stop sign, we'd want to go and clear that so that you wouldn't be so afraid and you could live a normal life, if that makes sense. Right.
So you're saying you have to get into the state you were in when you developed that, meaning like you have to get afraid again?
No, you're not going to get afraid again. Sorry. You actually kind of go into a mild state of trance when you're in real fear. It's a heightened state.
Understand. Yeah.
And so we're getting back into that little bit of state of trance minus the fear. Although you may sometimes, when I do regressive hypnotherapy, sometimes I will actually want them to feel the fear for a second so that they can let go of it. It's almost like you might have them imagine a balloon and put all the fear in it and then let go of the balloon and all of a sudden the fear goes away. That's just one visual. Yeah. Your mind loves imagery. Your mind will love to be able to see it in terms of a movie. So you kind of have, as a hypnotherapist, you have to paint a little bit of a picture where they're actually doing something to release it.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. And
it's fun.
It's fun. And so how about, so you're doing past life regressions, right?
Mm-hmm. Those are crazy fun.
Yeah. Tell me about that. Cause that sounds like the best job ever. Like, it sounds like just being a detective and like explore that to me from what you're just exploring someone else or helping someone else explore their own consciousness.
It's fun in a way that might not make sense.
Okay.
I am watching the most amazing soap opera on the planet, and I get to be sitting at the edge of my seat going, and then what happened? And then when you killed the lion, what happened?
Yeah.
Was your mom was there? Oh my gosh, tell me more about that. And your son was there, only this time it was your daughter? Tell me about that. I mean, I get to hear the most amazing stories, and some of the stories are not pleasant, but I get to be a part of hearing, history, people's relationships with their animals. I get to hear about healing with a past relationship or a current relationship. I get to hear about healing with a dead relative. People start to fear death less when they realize that they're going to get to see mom and dad again. Most of the time we do reincarnate with a lot of the same people over and over again. Not always, but a lot of the same. There's like a core cast that we almost always reincarnate with. And so when you start to see that your dead husband, you're going to get to see him again in the next life. It's not quite so scary anymore, if that makes sense. But it's so much fun. Yeah. You should totally do it for a living. It's fun. It's fun.
It sounds like it. It sounds like it. And so this question keeps coming up for me. It's like, so does everyone able to see their past lives? Like,
I don't like to do it with someone for the very first time who's never done hypnosis before. I always make them do a hypnotherapy session on something else, like confidence or something.
Right.
But anybody can do it. Not everyone will let themselves go into that state. So people aren't going to book a session with me if they don't believe in past lives. They're not going to spend the money to do that. Right. So at least those people get filtered out. And I know that's not going to happen because I believe if you have a core belief that there's only one lifetime, it would be pretty much impossible to go back and go poking around and looking at one with dragons in it. By the way, there are lifetimes with dragons. I hear about this all the time.
That's wild because wait, can I tell you a synchronicity right now?
Yeah.
Just like a week ago, I decided to play a game with the universe. I was having a hard time deciding about something. I was like, if I'm supposed to do it, show me dragons. Just show me dragons.
Love it.
Literally, it's you just saying that right now. It's been every day, and now you're another dragon. Okay, cool. So there were lifetimes with dragons.
The other thing I do with clients too is I have them talk to their spirit guides. And because when you're in that deep trance state, it's really easy to connect with them. It's just, it's like you're right there. It's like the easy phone call to make. And people get to ask their spirit guides questions and develop a relationship with their spirit guides they may never have had before. So I have people make a list of questions because it's hard in trance to think of like, what do I want to ask my spirit? If I could ask God anything, what would it be?
Yeah.
So I have them give me the questions in advance, and then I get the most amazing answers to things that like I learned stuff about how the other side works from listening to other people's spirit guides. It's really cool.
What's been like one of the most interesting things you've learned, or like one of your favorite things you've learned?
Aliens. I didn't go into this. I mean, I've always believed that people are visited by aliens. I do believe that. But I never thought about people having been aliens in a past life. I don't know why that hadn't occurred to me. And so when I go back and do passive regression and somebody is an alien from Sirius, what we would call an alien, I would say, only they're not an alien to them. And they're telling me about the culture, or somebody's a fairy, like a fairy.
Yeah.
Not a derogatory term, a fairy. Yeah. And they're telling me about fairy culture. And I'm listening and learning all of these things that I just never heard before. And the first time somebody went back and said, I don't have a regular body, I'm gas. I thought, okay, this person's crazy. Do I just bring them out of trance, or what do I do? What do I do with this? But I just kept going and was hearing this amazing story about being an element in another planet. It was so cool.
See, that's fascinating to me, those ones, because it's like, I feel like I haven't read the Dolores Cannon books, but I know like some about it. And I'm always curious about like our lives before, even if you believe that we're animals, like, well, are we the elements? Like, are we Earth? Like, are we, obviously we're Earth, but are we some sort of air? Are we some sort of, I don't know, like the things that you're not really thinking about as life in the way that we think about it. I think that must be the most interesting, because it's like, what do you do? Like, what is your life like? Like, what is someone who is a gas? Like, what was that person's life like?
They had a purpose. Had to do with helping heal energy and throw healing energy to the earth. And they were living a whole life being about that, and they were connected with spirit. That one went pretty quick. She bounced out of that pretty quick and then went into another life where she was a different kind of an element. She was in charge of crystals. She was like a crystal keeper. And she was telling me about that culture was way more fascinating, how her job was to charge and electrify crystals, like these, a regular crystal, and make them charged and put power into them so that people were using them as batteries. Wow. And she was talking about how she had to be sequestered because the energy she was working with was so strong that she couldn't, if she touched somebody, she could hurt them. And it was hard for her to remember not to, like, because she was so used to charging crystals, it was hard for her to remember not to put the charge into people's hands as she was holding them. And she was kind of a little bit lonely. It was an interesting life.
Wow.
But yeah.
Was that somewhere like Atlantis or like another planet?
I kept asking her, where are you? And she says she was describing the location, but she couldn't tell in the universe where she was, if it was Earth or if it was someplace else.
Interesting. What were you going to say?
I was going to say that one thing that happened to me is that my definition of weird has expanded exponentially. So anything that would be considered weird by most people, doesn't faze me anymore. That's become so much normal in my reality. If you get a chance to do these kinds of things, you start to think a lot of things probably are normal and a lot of things are happening behind the scenes. And I can understand why spirit doesn't necessarily show it to all of us, because even me, like understanding, that somebody could be an element kind of expands my world, but scares me at the same time because I can't quite understand that,
Right. Absolutely. I'm right there with you. I have another podcast where we do just very quote unquote weird things. And my definition of weird has all in the same realm, and just the things I've learned and the things that I've experienced. I'm just like, everything is possible, and weird is where I live apparently now. So,
right.
And it's a fun place to live, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's a world of possibilities, because you realize that so much more is possible than you thought. Another thing that's been happening a lot lately with clients who are interplanetary beings, what we might call aliens, is I'm hearing a lot that disclosure is coming, that we're going to be hearing and understanding a lot more. And I keep asking when, because I want to know when. Give me a date and time so that I can, decide if I need to put extra food in the garage.
Yeah.
and they all say soon, but like soon could be 100 years,
Right.
It doesn't work that. And everybody's freaking giving me the answer soon. I wish I could get months and years, but I don't know if they're just guides have a sense of humor. Guides will mess with you. I love the dragon story because guides will do that kind of stuff all the time. But I almost sometimes wonder if it's just them messing with me a little bit soon,
Yeah. Soon. Well, also time is not the way that we think of it. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Time is not linear, so it's hard. And also there's different timelines, right? Is that something you're coming up? Is that something you're interacting with your clients? Like timelines are different dimensions.
Different dimensions. You might you might call it a different dimension. I'm running into a lot of people who are living parallel lives.
Yeah.
So instead of going back to a past life, I'm saying, can you have them open the door, tell me what year it is, where they are. They're saying 1973 and I'm 20 years old. And I'm looking at a person who's 20 years old and I'm going, okay, that's not right. And they're not dying. They're living that same life as the person that I'm seeing. The person I'm seeing is maybe having a problem with public speaking. They don't know why. And this person in this parallel life is describing how she has this massive stage fright and now it's spilling over into this life. So I'm starting to realize that clearing a fear and phobia has less to do with, well, it still has to do with what's going on in this lifetime, but it can often have something to do with what's going on in a parallel life, what's going on in a past life. And that makes the whole scope of work so much bigger. So if somebody's just like, they just do fears and phobias, you're thinking, do you understand how to do it with a parallel life? Do you understand how to do it with a past life? That's huge. There's a lot more to it.
Yeah, because it's quantum. Like when you resolve that in one space, it goes across timelines, right? Or if let's say you're living a parallel life. And that's something I've explored quite a bit too with like the work I'm doing is like when we're communicating with a spirit, it's like I'm always wanting to know, like, are you reincarnated? And the timelines, like you're saying, it's so interesting. You're like, wait, what? Like that just shows you about how we think of time. We just don't really understand how time works. I mean, but it also is interesting to think about how like that's why sometimes, not saying that you meet yourself, not saying that you will meet yourself, but it gives more it gives me a better perspective of like how maybe like our same soul can kind of be split into different bodies, different entities, different energies, and yeah, it's pretty wild. That's so awesome.
I don't think people meet themselves. I really don't. I think that would just be too weird. Totally. I do believe that people, as I've asked everyone, are you living another life? And I almost always get, a lot of times I'll get just the one, but frequently the most common is probably 2 or 3. And I do see people that seem to be more advanced souls living 4. But
wow. How do they seem more advanced? Like what about them is advanced?
Well, first of all, they're going to trance and like as soon as I start talking to them, and the one I'm picturing right now went into trance and she was describing she was an angel and she had done something naughty and then kind of as punishment, but not really punishment. She was sent to the earth to learn a lesson about what she had done.
Wow.
And she was describing what it was like to be an angel and she was in trance in like 10 seconds, like no time. And then she was telling me that she was in 4 bodies at once because she wanted to get this over with. It was like, look, you have to learn how to bake cookies. I'm just making that up. It wasn't that. But you have to learn how to bake cookies, and she just wanted the freaking lesson over with. So she just split off into souls and went into 4 bodies at the same time just to get it out of the way.
Wow. So I'm like a screenwriter on the side, and every story that you're telling me, I'm like, oh my God, this is the best like TV show, or oh my God, would be such a great movie. Like just these ideas of, I also just feel like when we think of, for example, that story you just gave of like, she's an angel and she did something naughty. It's like from our human minds, I feel like we're like, it's an angel and everything's perfect. Where when you're an angel, you're just in this space of like, and nothing ever goes wrong. And you never, or it's the idea that maybe they're not growing anymore. They're just an angel. And it's like that information gives me the understanding of like, wow, like an angel is learning and growing too, and has to, like, that's so cool to think about. I love
that all these beings have to evolve. And as human beings, we have to keep working on ourselves. That client who was coming in for public speaking and we were healing it, I wanted to jokingly tell her, you need to see if you can find that person and have her give you for half of that session because she cleared it for both of you.
Yeah. Oh my
We're continuing to do the work on ourselves in order to grow. It bothers me when somebody says, well, I've done all that. I've taken all these classes. I don't need to do those things anymore. No, you have to. You got to keep learning and growing as a person because we evolve. We evolve all the time and information changes. I mean, even with my hypnotherapy practice, there were things I was doing 10 years ago that don't work now because people have changed. People have evolved. So I had to tweak some of the things I did.
Yeah.
They worked before, trust me.
Yeah.
And now they don't. And it's because we as human beings are evolving.
Wow. Yeah. I love that. I absolutely love that. And I get that message too. Like I feel like we're coming out of survival mode, but we're going into now it's a new mode. It's more of like introspection and like And also the ability to work together, which is interesting because I think this is like a 2-year. I think we're in a 2-year right now, which is about like coming together. I just recognize that. But for me, it's really about, I'm in this phase right now where I'm like, okay, this thing's coming up. So who can help me grow in this area? Whereas before I was so in survival mode that I didn't even want any, I was just trying to survive. I couldn't even think about bringing anyone else into my world to help me and open up to someone in that way. And so it's really cool that people like you are doing what you're doing, and that, you know, we have this community of healers and therapists in all different ways, and that we have so many different areas of our lives to explore and heal, you know, and up level.
I love it. I love the idea of collaboration. If there's one thing I could say to the healer community that we have to stop doing, we've got to stop beating each other up. We've got to stop picking on each other about our weight. We've got to stop saying that, well, you don't have a PhD, you shouldn't be talking about past life regressions. We've got to, in general, be kinder to each other and just acknowledge that each person has a different piece. Hypnotherapists get sometimes bagged on by psychotherapists because they spend more time in school and we do things and we can actually charge more sometimes. Yeah. But I think we all have a place in this. You've seen this, I'm sure, with chiropractors get bagged on by medical doctors. And it goes both ways. We need to, as a community of healers, bring more love into the situation and understand that each one of us has a piece, and that each organism is so different and so vast. And there's so much to us that we need to work together in the spirit of love rather than in the spirit of mine's better than yours, in order to help up-level the community and work together in general. And I see this with the media. The media is just killing us. It's trying to separate Democrats from Republicans. It's trying to separate men from women. It's trying to get us to fight. And we have to work together. I mean, if you sit across from a coffee table with somebody of a vastly different political perspective than yourself, if you sit and talk to them, you can have a conversation. And it can be a polite and respectful one. And there's going to be some things you'll agree on. But when we watch TV, we see things being so pulled apart and making us, like the North and the South, angry at each other when we really don't need to be. We all want the same thing.
100%. Amen to that. Seriously. Because I mean, I was just thinking about even me and my partner. He doesn't really believe in this stuff. He's very science minded.
So does mine.
There you go. And yet, there's something, and I've been thinking recently, I'm like, wow, what a gift it is to really be able to learn exactly what you're talking about being so different, but being together and really accepting each other's viewpoints and realizing that they're valid. It's taken me a while to really open up to that. But now there's times when even though I believe in a certain perspective, he'll say something that's really coming from his perspective. And I'm like, oh, okay. It really broadens how I understand humanity and how I understand what's going on here and how I understand how different people feel about what's going on here. And that doesn't have to be threatening. It doesn't have to mean something's wrong. Yeah.
I love what you just said. And I married an engineer myself. I mean, he's an atheist. I mean, he doesn't believe in any of the stuff that I do for a living.
Yeah.
But there's a great deal of respect and love and between us, and we work together so well as a team. And I almost wonder if part of why we got together was because I got to see the other side of it. I get to see the scientist who says, yes, but show me the paper.
Yes.
And sometimes he's right.
Yes,
and I say, well,
exactly.
I feel like we're moving this summer. That's fine. We can clean out the house a little bit, but let's not start looking for another house until the landlord tells us they're selling the one we're in.
Yes.
Yeah, he's kind of right,
Yes.
It's
grounding
there.
too.
Yeah, he's right.
Yeah.
But, and what I love about my partner, and I'm sure yours is the same way, every once in a while I see him evolving when I say, I just feel like if we go down that street right now, something not nice is going to happen. He's like, okay, we're going left then, even though the place we're going to is on the other side of right.
Yeah.
Cool. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely seeing mutual evolution for sure in different ways. And I mean, I think it's like you said, that's why people come together. And that's why, and on a larger scale, on the macro, as you're talking about, it's that's what we need to recognize in the world. I feel like we're learning how to see it in these more intimate partnerships now. You have that friend that's so different than you even, but you just you appreciate their craziness or their boldness or whatever it is. Even though you're so different, you're the quiet one or whatever. But it's we need to broaden that perspective and apply it to the world at large and realize you're saying, the only it's like the media and TV and politics that are trying to project this, like, you cannot get along type of thing. Like, you must be at war if you don't believe the same thing. This is threatening. So I really appreciate that perspective and that message. I think that's absolutely true. And yeah, I was going to ask, do you do online sessions, or is everything that you do in person?
I do online sessions for everything but past life regressions. I've messed with it a few times. I can't seem to get the mic loud enough to me to really hear what they're saying, because when they sometimes will whisper, but I do every other kind of session virtual. But if you're looking for a past life regression therapist, it's kind of cool to be able to feel the energy anyway, because when you're doing a past life regression, the energy in the room changes. So if you're looking for a good one, I went to the Ravenheart Institute in Colorado and I learned Michael Newton's technique. The Newton Institute also has lists of therapists that you can find. Michael Newton's stuff is just amazing. I mean, it's just amazing. Dolores Cannon's amazing. Linda Backman's amazing. Brian Weiss is the one everybody's heard of because I think he has a better marketing team.
Yeah.
His stuff's good. Don't get me, his stuff's really good. I love his books. But all of those others are really good too. So Check it out and explore.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And how about if people want to get in touch with you or learn more about your services or book something with you? How do they get in touch with you?
Thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
I can be found at soulconnecthypnotherapy.com. Soulconnecthypnotherapy.com.
Awesome. And what about this book? Where can they find the book?
Yes. I would love to say everywhere, even in the 7-Eleven, but it's not quite there yet. Yeah. You can find it on Amazon.com. You can find it apparently at Barnes & Noble now. Thank you for that.
Sure.
And Kindle is amazing. I love Kindle. It's on the Kindle. It's on the Nook, on the Barnes & Noble, and you can get a printed copy if you go to Amazon.com. But it's Tales from the Trance. It's really fun. I've worked with some amazing people. I've even worked with celebrities. You're not going to be able to figure out who they are because I don't want to get sued. But there's some really amazing, great stories in the book. And I would love for everyone to read it because it's very inspiring and it helps people understand themselves a little bit better.
It sounds awesome. I love it. And I love the name too. That's perfect. Awesome. Well, so Jill, if you could give one piece of advice to all the PHeads listening, just something that they can take with them on their journey, like the most important thing for them to know or understand as they journey on, what would you say?
Trust your intuition. If you're hearing messages, you're feeling messages, don't sit there and question, I don't know if that's true. Yeah, sometimes you're going to be wrong. Mm-hmm. But just acknowledge that you're feeling something. I get this all the time with clients who come in for psychic readings. They want to know if their boyfriend's cheating on them, for example. The answer to the question is usually no. Most of the time it's not. They're not. But if they're thinking that, if they're feeling that, there's something wrong. So you can't just say, oh, well, he didn't actually stick his whatever in somebody else's whatever. But maybe there's something in the relationship that needs to be healed. So you need to feel that out. If you're feeling negative feelings towards someone, maybe you should just really explore those rather than, oh, that can't be true. I see no evidence of it. It would be so much better for you to make a mistake trusting your feelings than for you to make a mistake by not trusting your feelings and take an action and ending in disaster. Every story I've ever heard of something really bad happening to somebody starts with, I had a bad feeling. Listen to that. I'm not even just talking about bad things. I had look for the feeling. Allow yourself to be in the feeling side of things and acknowledge that. Don't be afraid of your intuition. Don't be afraid of channeling. You're not going to be possessed. Nothing bad's going to happen. Just allow yourself to open up intuitively and let that information flow, if that makes sense.
Definitely. Love that. Always so important to trust yourself. Right?
Yes. And
I love what you said too. It's so much better to make a mistake like listening to your feelings than, the other way around by not listening to your feelings. It's like it's kind of like your intuition and your feelings are like it's like a system that you have to learn. Like you have to learn how it works, and you're not going to learn it if you keep denying it or not trusting it or refusing to interact with it and trying to interact through other people. You know what I mean? So
yeah. I'll give you a hint on that too.
Yeah.
When you're with your intuition, the way you can tell between intuition and fear is an intuitive message tends to come through in a quiet voice. It doesn't have a lot of emotion behind it. I witnessed a car accident one time, and I remember hearing just before the accident, this person's going to hit the car in front of him. And and it was only a moment later where I threw emotion into it. But the actual intuitive message is very quiet and very peaceful, usually just a few words, not an essay. or it's a flash of a picture. It's when we throw the emotion into it that comes later. But if you're looking for an intuitive message, it's generally more quiet.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's super true. I was just thinking about, I saw an accident one time and I it's very simple. It's very, very simple and direct. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for that. Cool. Jill, well, do you have anything else that you feel called to share?
I want people to be less afraid of exploring the other side. I think the church, and many of us, including myself, grew up in religion that teaches that it's of the devil. And certainly there are some negative elements of it. But I think the idea that you're going to get possessed or that you're going to be hooked up with the devil keeps people from exploring their own spirituality. And I don't believe that the Christian faith and spirituality are mutually exclusive. I think you can explore the idea of being in a past life and still have a wonderful relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
I don't think those things have to be at war either. So I just would say, please just explore your own spirituality. We all need to grow and evolve as people. And if we all spend a little bit time in meditation, asking yourself how you feel, working on increasing your own happiness, the entire world will be a better place. If we incrementally do this every single day, work on ourselves just a little bit, the whole world will be happier and healthier and stronger, and disclosure will happen faster.
Yes, soon, very soon.
Very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. The best gift you can give to the world is healing yourself and working on yourself, because then you're more available. And you become like an active part of other people's healing and journey. And, the more I got that message this weekend, it was like, just get yourself ready to receive. And I was like, receive what? It was like, receive anything, like receive an idea for a project, receive a baby, receive. Like, but like get in, just get yourself clear enough so that you can receive whatever wants to come through, and that happens through working on yourself and through, like you said, exploring your spirituality. So absolutely.
Love it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, one more question.
Sure.
Do you have any fun or inspiring, like stories of synchronicity or manifestation or anything like that you like to share?
I do, as a matter of fact. Okay, so people can relate to this. I had a terrible, miserable job. I was working in an insurance company and I was in a cubicle. Some of you can relate to that awful cubicle situation. It's like being in a cell, only, you can kind of see over the top. And on my lunch break one day, I open a magazine. I see this picture of this gorgeous resort in Vail, Colorado. And I'm like, oh, I want that in my cubicle. So I tear the page out of the magazine, stick it up on my cubicle, and people would walk by and ask me about it. And I'd say, as I started to get in the habit of saying, yeah, I'm going to go there next July and be there in July. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, I decide to quit this job and take a job at a vitamin company nearby. And I was told that I may occasionally have to travel, but a whole lot of people would have to get sick with the flu before I got traveled because I'm the last, 6th or 7th down the list. And I was like, sure, whatever. So sure enough, 6 or 7 people get sick. Somebody quit, a bunch of people got sick. And then all of a sudden I'm up bat and they're saying, yeah, we're going to need you to fly to Vail, Colorado for a week.
Wow.
And talk about enzyme products. I'd only been at this company for maybe 2 weeks. And sure, right. What am I going to say? I'm new. So yeah. I go there with my rolly bag. I've only been working there for a few weeks. I had a speech I had to prepare and memorize in the plane. And I walk into the picture. It was crazy. I walked into the picture. It was the same resort. And it was July.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. That. It gets even more crazy. If you can believe it. Not long after we got back, I got a call from one of the people I'd gone to the show with. And they said, that hotel we were in, it burned down. And I'm like, no way. He's like, yeah, if we hadn't gone then, we would never have gotten to see this amazing. I'm sure they rebuilt it, but this amazing hotel. Yeah, it burned down.
Wow. The timing.
Crazy. I know.
That is awesome. Crazy. I love that. Wow. I mean, not the burning down part, but just how it all unfolded. That's amazing. That's really, visualization, right? Like you said, the mind loves imagery, right? You say that?
Yeah, of course. Now I put like 25 pictures of things, and that really hasn't happened the same way since, but it was still so much fun.
Yeah. Well, I feel like your story was such laser focus. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Where it's like, when you have a bunch of things, it's like, okay, which one comes first? Organizing.
Right. Love it.
Awesome. Well, Jill, thank you so much. This was such a pleasure. Love your energy and your stories. And I'm going to check out your book because it sounds right up my alley. if you're listening and you're interested in Jill's services or a book, go check out her website. We're going to link it in the show notes, and have a beautiful day.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun. Thank you.
Of course. All right. Bye.
Bye.
That's it for this week's episode. If you're a listener with a story to share and are interested in being featured on a future episode of this special series, you can email me at alexa@positivehead.com. Also, if you're craving more consciousness elevating content, be sure to check out Gaia, which is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content on the web, where you can stream an incredible 7,000 plus exclusive videos covering 5,000 years of wisdom. As you all hear Brandon constantly say, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration, and if you're looking to journey deep down the rabbit hole to do so, then Gaia is the best place we know of to do it. Period. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. Otherwise, tune in next Friday for another HeAd Posse episode. And until then, as Brandon always says, journey well.